because the line of analysis that I'm presenting cannot be avoided. It cannot be refuted. It is ironclad. Okay? One cannot deny within their system that something is fundamentally ultimate or absolute, because it's suicidal philosophically to either deny or not accept that there is something that is ultimate. Because if you don't accept that something is absolute or ultimate, then your facts have no final or foundational intelligibility. So in other words, it makes no difference whether I say an apple is an apple because of I don't know, which would be unintelligible, versus I give you a chain link of 10 explanations, and then when I get to the 10th answer, I say, well, I don't know. It makes no difference. Both presentations of apples are unintelligible. They're semantically apprehendable, but metaphysically they don't have intelligibility, is because what is being invoked doesn't depend upon anything. And you see, this is what I'm getting at in the Christian apologetic, that the God of the Bible has categorically revealed that without him, nothing can exist, and that includes intelligibility. And so when the unbeliever maintains that he can present one or more facts that are in themselves intelligible without reference to God, that's where I have them. Because if they're going to claim that they have to have a good reason to believe in God, the personal absolute, which would be the grounds for intelligibility, then the intelligibility for their facts comes from an impersonal absolute. So what's the good reason for that? The answer is they don't have one. They simply adopt whatever they consider consciously or consciously an absolute arbitrarily without reason. And yet they maintain, well, I'll believe in God. You just got to give me a good reason. Well, then why do you believe in the not God position without reason? So they're not really neutral. God has given overwhelming sufficient reasons. Every fact indicates God. And when the atheist says, how so? Then what they're saying is facts are not indicative of a personal absolute. Well, then how are facts indicative of an impersonal absolute? See, the fact of the matter is God necessarily exists, because if you do not accept and affirm that God necessarily exists, and in virtue of his self-disclosure, then you can have no defense or intelligibility for anything. And yet they want to think that they can be intelligible. And the reason why is because they confuse semantic apprehension for metaphysical intelligibility. Semantic apprehension means that you understand that when I ate a sausage pizza. You understand that there's dough, there's sauce, there's cheese. But intelligibility means that dough, sauce, and cheese and meat actually means something within its system. But you see, the atheist has no system to appeal to.
Oh, right? They don't have necessary beings, right? Or a necessary.
No, the atheist can't appeal to anything that is necessary.
Yeah, that's a big problem for them.
In other words, Christians for too long have been granting certain foundational states that God says cannot exist without him. And Christians will go around and grant the atheist these things, which is a mistake. Okay? So when the atheist wants to talk about science, how is science an intelligible concept without the personal absolute God of the Bible? How is that? And then they'll start talking about, observation, testing, repeatability, and laws and predictive capability. But that quickly collapses. So what if there's predictive capability? In a monumentally large universe, there are going to be some really weird coincidences that happen. Right? Haven't we heard atheists say, you know what, given enough time, anything can happen? Well, given enough time in a big enough universe, you could have a series of consistencies that give the appearance of laws of nature when in fact they're not. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if you say to me, how do you know God exists? Why? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, he's revealed that he exists. All facts indicate God exists. In other words, there has to be something absolute and eternal in order for any fact to exist. Number two, that ultimacy is going to have to be rational and personal. Because if you don't accept that, then you're going to have to explain how you, as a rational being, emerged from non-rationality. And saying that rationality is an emergent property of evolution is just simply begging the question. Okay, so that's natural revelation, and then there's special revelation, where God has communicated to a number of people throughout human history, and it's been recorded accurately and objectively, and in a self-verifying way. And if you say, no, I don't buy the mumbo-jumbo of the Bible, okay, say, fine. And I'm just going to say, good. Then whatever you say, I'm going to tell you what's your foundation, what's your worldview. And I'm going to show you that the God of the Bible exists due to the impossibility of its denial. Right? The same reason why you believe in the external physical world, causality, and laws of nature. You believe those three things due to the impossibility of its denial. In other words, if you deny these things, if you do not accept them, then you will not have intelligibility or coherence in any of your statements. Well, I'm going to tell you the same thing is true about the God of the Bible. Now, some smart aleck will come along and say, oh, but what about Allah? What about the God of Zoroastrianism? Well, unfortunately, number one, these gods don't exist because the true God has revealed they don't exist. Number two, they don't have the properties and attributes of the Christian God, which are necessary ontologically for intelligibility. Okay, and I'll go through them really quick. Number one, he's absolute, personal, unconditionally non-dependent, omniscient, omnipotent, always truth-revealing, absolutely sovereign, and he has a plan that he will execute flawlessly for human history, including the plan of salvation, not only to save our souls from damnation, but to save us from our own incoherency. Okay? Without God and him having those properties and attributes, we cannot have coherency, right? Now, the issue is not believing in God. The issue is that the God of the Bible and his properties exist ontologically. And the denial of that is going to result in incoherency. Okay? And so if you deny the Christian God and you say, oh, well, I got the flying spaghetti monster, you cannot imitate the Christian God's parodies. It is impossible. Okay?
You brought us some interesting points there. Can you explain a little bit more about, you said there has to be something absolute and eternal for any fact to be true.
Yeah.
Can you just explain that?
Yeah. Because all facts are either dependent or non-dependent. Okay, yeah, that was what you were talking about. Okay. Right. And if somebody says, well, what if we have an infinite regress of dependency? Well, then why does the whole set exist? Is there an infinite regress for that? The fact that you and I are rational is going to indicate that the ground of all being is itself rational and has granted to us what it is. Because if you deny the proposition, then you're going to have to explain how rationality comes from non-rationality.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, and you're either going to believe that you live in a chance universe where events just happen, where there is no explanation, or you're going to say, "Oh, well, I don't come from such a universe. I come from a universe where there are causal relations and laws of nature behind facts." You say, "Good." So then your thoughts were necessarily determined billions of years ago in a cascading molecules like toppling over dominoes. You're not going to have rationality in a world where your thoughts are simply and only the product of causal sequencing. So, and this is going to sound harsh, it may even sound arrogant, but it's game over for atheism. Game over.
Just the
And they have nowhere to go other than to scuttle the conversation or to be passive aggressively lie.
Yeah.
You see, Christians playing the evidential game are wasting their time with hardcore unbelievers, because you're firing a BB gun at a modern tank. It's not going to work, because they're already operating from the not God position, and whatever evidence you try to present will just simply be reinterpreted as that's not that's God of the gaps. So what we have to do then is we have to do, rather than a direct presentation, because they're already committed to God doesn't exist, to show them that that position is completely incoherent. And so then they're going to have to either admit that the God of the Bible has revealed himself in natural and special revelation, or they're going to have to openly embrace incoherency and absurdity. And they want to say, no, I'm not embracing absurdity. Good. Tell me about your system. What's its foundation? And that's when they realize, uh-oh. And at that point, they'll start fabricating a God who revealed themselves while they were sitting on their toilet yesterday afternoon. Which is not a joke, because I've had a number of atheists say that. So you see, the issue is not, these people are not truth seekers. They're on the run from God, and their excuses are fake and they're phony. Anytime they say, I don't have a good reason to believe in God, right there, I got them. That's all I need.
That's the claim.
So you don't have a good reason to believe in God. Good. What is your good reason to believe in the impersonal absolute that you're relying on right now? Does anyone think they have an answer to that?